The massive halls of the interstellar research vessel Nexus Prime echoed with the heavy footsteps of its alien crew members. The ship stretched for nearly 2 kilometers and housed some of the most elite species in the Galactic Federation. Every corner buzzed with activity as different races worked together on their mission to explore the Outer Rim worlds. In the biology lab on Deck 7, Hyunwoo Kim sat quietly at his workstation. He was small compared to most of his crewmates, standing only 5 feet 8 inches tall with a lean build that looked fragile next to the towering aliens around him. His black hair was neatly kept, and his brown eyes focused intently on the sample slides before him. He wore the standard Federation research uniform, but it seemed to hang loose on his frame. The lab door hissed open, and 3 massive figures entered. The first was Grix Moore, the ship's security chief. The Vorthak warrior stood nearly 8 feet tall, his thick gray skin covered in natural armor plates that could stop plasma bolts. His forearms moved with practiced efficiency as he carried. His weapons and his yellow eyes glowed with predatory intelligence. Behind him came 2 other Vorthak guards, equally imposing and confident. "Look what we have here," Grix Moore said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "The little human is playing with his toys again." Hyunwoo looked up from his microscope but said nothing. He had learned that responding to their taunts only made things worse. Instead, he continued preparing tissue samples from their last planetary survey. "I heard the soft skin thinks he found something important in those plant samples," one of the other guards said, laughing. The sound was harsh and grating. "Probably just more of his imagination," Grixmore replied. "Humans see patterns where none exist. Their weak minds cannot handle real scientific work." The 3 Vorthak warriors moved through the lab, deliberately bumping into Hyunwoo's equipment as they passed. One of them knocked over a rack of sample tubes, sending them clattering to the floor. The precious specimens Hyunwoo had spent hours preparing were ruined. "Oops," the guard said with mock concern. "How clumsy of me. Perhaps the human should be more careful where he leaves his things." Hyunwoo knelt down and began collecting the broken tubes without complaint. His face remained calm, but his hands shook slightly as he worked. Years of this treatment had taught him patience, but it still hurt every time. The lab door opened again, and Dr. Veltara entered. The Zalani chief scientist was 7 feet tall with pale blue skin and an elongated skull that housed her massive brain. Her species was known throughout the galaxy for their incredible intelligence and advanced technology. She moved with the grace of someone who knew she was superior to everyone around her. "Security Chief Grixmore," she said in her melodic but cold voice, "I trust you are not disturbing our human colleague too much. Even inferior minds can sometimes produce useful data if properly supervised." "Of course, Dr. Veltara," Grixmore replied with a bow. "We were just ensuring the lab maintains proper standards." Dr. Veltara approached Hyunwoo's workstation and examined his research notes. Her large silver eyes scanned the data with incredible speed. "Interesting," she said after a moment. "The human has managed to identify several new bacterial strains from the Epsilon 4 samples. Crude work, of course, but adequate for his limited capabilities." She made several corrections to his notes with her stylus, changing his conclusions and adding her own theories. When she was finished, she attached her name as the primary researcher. "There," she said with satisfaction. "Now this research might actually be taken seriously by the scientific community. Humans simply lack the intellectual capacity for advanced xenobiology. It is fortunate that more evolved species can guide their efforts." Hyunwoo watched his work being claimed by another researcher, but he said nothing. This happened regularly. His discoveries would be credited to alien scientists while he remained invisible in the background. Down in Engineering Bay 12, Sojin Park faced similar treatment. The human engineer was working on improving the ship's atmospheric recycling systems when a group of Quillian technicians surrounded her workstation. The Quillians were built for speed, with sleek bodies and multiple limbs that could work on different tasks simultaneously. Their leader, a senior engineer named Vel Kith, looked at Sojin's modifications with obvious disdain. "Another human attempting to improve Federation technology," Velkith said, his voice high and rapid. "How amusing. Their primitive minds cannot grasp the complexity of our systems." "The efficiency improvements are solid," Sojin said quietly, trying to defend her work. "I increased air purification by 12% while reducing power consumption." "Impossible," Velkith replied. "Humans lack the processing speed to make such calculations accurately. You must have made an error." He quickly reworked her equations, introducing several mistakes in his haste to prove her wrong. "See," he announced to the other Quillians, "the human miscalculated by significant margins. Her modifications would have caused system failures within a week." He deleted Sojin's work and implemented his own flawed design, dismissing her improvements as dangerous mistakes. This pattern repeated throughout the ship. Human crew members were assigned the most basic tasks and watched constantly for signs of incompetence. Their ideas were dismissed, their contributions forgotten, and their presence barely tolerated. In the ship's massive mess hall, the different species naturally segregated themselves. The Vorthak warriors sat together at reinforced tables, sharing stories of their conquests and displaying their weapons. The Zilani scientists occupied a quiet corner where they could discuss complex theories without interruption. The swift Quillians gathered near the main display screens, their conversation moving too fast for other species to follow. Hyunwoo and Sojin sat alone at a small table near the viewing windows. They ate their standard nutrition rations in silence while watching the stars stream past. Around them, alien voices created a constant buzz of conversation in dozens of languages. "Another productive day," Sojin said with bitter humor. "Velkith took credit for my atmospheric improvements and then broke them trying to show off. Dr. Veltara claimed my bacterial research," Hyunwoo replied. "She called it crude, but adequate for my limited capabilities." "Why do we stay here?" Sojin asked. "We could request transfers to human ships or colonies." Hyunwoo considered this question carefully. "Because someone needs to show them what humans can really do," he said finally. "We just haven't found the right opportunity yet." Their quiet conversation was interrupted by an announcement from the bridge. Captain Torvash's deep voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "All senior staff report to the bridge immediately. We have received a priority distress signal." The mess hall quickly emptied as alien crew members rushed to their stations. Hyunwoo and Sojin were not considered senior staff, but they followed, at a distance, curious about what emergency could require the entire command crew. On the bridge, Captain Torvash stood at his command station like a mountain of muscle and authority. The hegemonian captain's 6 arms worked independently, manipulating different controls, while his massive head turned to address his officers. His species was known for their leadership abilities and tactical brilliance. "We have received a distress signal from Research Station Cathara 7, the captain announced. "All communication was lost 6 hours ago. Long-range sensors show no obvious signs of destruction, but something has clearly gone wrong." The bridge fell silent. Every species in the Federation knew about Cathara 7. It was classified as a Class X death world, one of the most dangerous planets ever discovered. The research station there studied the planet's unique ecosystem from what was supposed to be a safe distance. "Sir," Dr. Veltara said, her voice unusually tense. "Cathara 7 has a danger rating higher than any world we have encountered. The surface is covered in toxic storms, carnivorous plants that can dissolve metal, and predators that have evolved to hunt the deadliest prey. Even our most advanced equipment may not be sufficient for a rescue mission. Nevertheless," Captain Torvash replied firmly, "we cannot abandon Federation personnel. I am calling for volunteers for a rescue operation. We will need our best warriors, our most brilliant scientists, and our most advanced equipment." Grixmore stepped forward immediately. "My warriors and I volunteer, Captain. No death world can stand against Vorthak's strength and courage." "I will join the mission," Dr. Veltara added. My scientific expertise and advanced equipment will be essential for understanding any threats we encounter. Other senior officers quickly volunteered, each confident that their species' natural advantages would ensure success. The rescue team was shaping up to be the most elite group the Nexus Prime could assemble. From the back of the bridge, a quiet voice spoke up. "I would like to volunteer as well." Every head turned to stare at Hyunwoo. The small human stood calmly among the towering aliens, his expression serious and determined. For a moment, the bridge was completely silent. Then Grixmore began to laugh. The sound started as a low rumble but quickly grew into booming laughter that echoed throughout the bridge. Soon, other crew members joined in. "The soft skin wants to walk on a death world," Grixmore gasped between laughs. "This is the funniest thing I have heard in years." "Impossible," Dr. Velterra said, though she was also smiling. "A human would die within minutes of exposure to Cathara 7's environment. Even our most advanced protective suits may not be sufficient, and human biology is notoriously fragile." Captain Torvash raised one of his hands for silence. "Human Kim," he said, his voice not unkind but clearly skeptical. "Your courage is admirable, but this mission requires capabilities beyond those of your species. The rescue team will face dangers that would overwhelm even our strongest warriors." "With respect, Captain," Hyunwoo replied calmly, "my xenobiology expertise might be crucial for understanding the planet's threats and locating survivors. I have studied the available data on Cathara 7's ecosystem, and I believe I can contribute to the mission's success." This statement caused another round of laughter from the alien crew members. The idea that human knowledge could be superior to Zalani science, or that human courage could match Vorthak warrior spirit, was absurd to them. Captain Torvash considered the request for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Very well, Human Kim. You may join the mission, but you will remain with the dropship while the rescue team handles the dangerous work. I will not risk your life unnecessarily." As the crew began preparing for the rescue mission, Hyunwoo quietly returned to his lab. He had work to do if he wanted to be ready for Cathara 7. Behind him, he could still hear the occasional burst of laughter as crew members shared jokes about the human who thought he could survive on a death world. None of them suspected that. They were about to learn what humans were truly capable of. The preparation bay hummed with activity as the rescue team assembled their equipment. Captain Torvash had given them 12 hours to prepare for what everyone knew would be an extremely dangerous mission. The massive chamber was filled with the most advanced technology the Galactic Federation could provide. Grixmore stood in the center of the bay like a monument to warfare. His natural armor had been reinforced with powered combat plating that could withstand direct hits from plasma cannons. Energy shields flickered around his massive frame, creating a shimmer in the air. His forearms were equipped with different weapons: a particle rifle, a molecular disruptor, a gravity hammer, and a personal shield generator. 2 other Vorthak warriors flanked him. Kexvor was slightly smaller but known for his incredible speed in combat. His armor was lighter, designed for mobility, and his weapons focused on rapid-fire capabilities. The 3rd warrior, Thane Kuhl, was the largest of the group. His armor was so heavy that the deck plates groaned under his weight. He carried weapons that could level buildings. "Look at this equipment," Grixmore boasted, his voice echoing through the bay. "The finest weapons in the galaxy, powered by energy cells that could run a small city. No creature on any death world can stand against Vorthak military might." Veltara worked quietly at her own equipment station. The Zalani scientist had assembled an array of devices that looked like they belonged in an advanced laboratory rather than a rescue mission. Her environmental suit was a masterpiece of engineering, with multiple layers of protection against radiation, toxins, temperature extremes, and physical damage. "My bioscanners can detect life forms at a range of 50 kilometers, she explained to her assistant, a younger Zalani named Kivtol. "The atmospheric analyzers will identify any dangerous compounds in real time. The energy shields are calibrated to deflect both physical and energy-based attacks." She held up a small device that pulsed with soft blue light. This is a neural disruptor. It can temporarily shut down the nervous systems of most known life forms, rendering them harmless. My people have used similar devices to pacify entire ecosystems. Nearby, the Quillian scout Zeph Kill was testing his mobility gear. The sleek alien moved like liquid lightning, his multiple limbs allowing him to navigate through obstacle courses at speeds that made other species dizzy to watch. His equipment was built for reconnaissance, lightweight armor, advanced sensors, and tools for rapid movement through any terrain. "Speed is life," Zeph Kill said, his words coming so fast they almost blurred together. "I can cover ground faster than any predator can react. My people have scouted thousands of dangerous worlds. We see threats before they see us." At the far end of the bay, Hyunwoo Kim sat quietly checking his own equipment. Compared to the advanced gear surrounding him, his supplies looked primitive. He had a standard atmospheric suit, basic medical supplies, a simple communicator, and a field kit containing sample containers, a portable microscope, and basic analysis tools. The contrast was so stark that several crew members had gathered to stare. Hyunwoo's entire equipment load could fit in a single backpack, while each alien team member required hover platforms to transport their gear. "Is that everything, human?" Grixmore called out, amusement clear in his voice. "Perhaps you forgot to requisition proper equipment. I could lend you one of my smaller weapons, though I doubt you could lift it." Hyunwoo looked up from organizing his supplies. "This is sufficient for my role in the mission," he replied calmly. Dr. Veltara approached his workstation, her expression a mixture of condescension and genuine curiosity. "Human Kim, your equipment appears to be standard survey gear. Do you understand that Kythera 7 is not a normal planetary environment? The atmospheric pressure alone could crush unprotected beings. The radiation levels would kill most species in minutes." "I have reviewed all available data on the planet," Hyunwoo said. "My equipment is appropriate for the mission parameters." This response caused another round of laughter from the assembled team members. The idea that basic human equipment could be sufficient where advanced alien technology was required seemed absurd to everyone present. Captain Torvash entered the preparation bay, his 6 arms moving independently as he reviewed mission reports on multiple data tablets. The massive hegemonian surveyed the assembled team with satisfaction. "The rescue team looks impressive," he announced. 3 Vorthak warriors with enough firepower to level a mountain, a Zalani scientist with technology that can analyze and neutralize most known threats, a Quillian scout who can map the entire mission area in minutes. This represents the best the Federation has to offer. He paused when he reached Hyunwoo's station. "And our human observer, who will remain safely with the dropship while the real work is done." The holographic display in the center of the bay activated, showing a detailed image of Kythera 7. The planet looked beautiful from space, swirling clouds in shades of red and gold, vast oceans that sparkled like jewels, and continents covered in what appeared to be lush vegetation. "Do not be fooled by its appearance," Captain Torvash warned. "Long-range sensors have identified over 3,000 different species of carnivorous plants on the surface. The atmosphere contains 17 different types of corrosive compounds. The native predators include creatures that can phase through solid matter and others that can generate localized gravity fields." Dr. Veltara activated her own holographic projector, displaying detailed analysis of the planet's hazards. The research station was built with the strongest materials available and protected by energy barriers that could stop military assault vehicles. Something on that planet was powerful enough to overcome those defenses. "All the more reason to bring overwhelming force," Grixmore declared. "Whatever destroyed the research station will face the full might of Vorthak warriors. We have conquered dozens of death worlds. Kythera 7 will be no different." Zeph Kill moved around the holographic display at high speed, his multiple eyes analyzing the terrain from every angle. "The surface geography shows optimal routes for rapid movement. I can establish a perimeter," around the research station within 30 minutes of landing. Any threats will be identified and marked for elimination. Hyunwoo studied the display quietly, his expression thoughtful. While the others focused on weapons and defenses, he examined the ecological patterns visible in the orbital scans. The distribution of vegetation, the flow patterns of the atmosphere, and the subtle color variations in different regions told a story that his companions seemed to miss. "Human," Dr. Veltara said, noticing his attention to the display. "Do you have observations to share? Your xenobiology training might provide some insight, though I doubt you can see anything our advanced sensors have missed." "The ecosystem appears to be highly integrated," Hyunwoo replied carefully. "The different species seem to work together in ways that suggest complex interdependence. This might mean that aggressive actions could trigger coordinated responses." Grixmore laughed loudly. "Coordinated responses? They are animals, human. Animals respond to superior force by running or dying. That is the way of nature throughout the galaxy. My people have studied millions of species across thousands of worlds," Dr. Veltara added. "Predator-prey relationships follow predictable patterns. Apply sufficient pressure, and any ecosystem will yield to superior technology and intelligence." The mission briefing continued for several more hours. Each team member presented their specialized capabilities and explained how they would contribute to the rescue operation. Grixmore outlined tactical approaches for dealing with hostile creatures. Dr. Veltara described scientific methods for analyzing and neutralizing environmental threats. Zeph-Kill detailed reconnaissance protocols for mapping dangerous terrain. When it was Hyunwoo's turn to speak, he simply said that he would monitor communications dropship and provide support as needed. This modest response was met with knowing nods from the other team members, who saw it as appropriate recognition of human limitations. As the briefing concluded, the team members began final preparations for departure. The massive loading bay doors opened to reveal the dropship that would carry them to Kythera 7. The vessel was built for missions to hostile environments, with reinforced hulls, advanced life support systems, and enough firepower to level a small city. Dr. Veltara supervised the loading of her scientific equipment while running final diagnostics on her instruments. "All systems show optimal performance," she reported. "My scanners are calibrated for maximum sensitivity. No life form on that planet will escape detection." Grixmore and his warriors conducted weapons checks, their various firearms and explosives creating an impressive display of destructive potential. "Whatever killed the research team will face justice," the security chief declared. "Vorthak warriors do not leave fallen comrades unavenged." Zeph-Kill tested his mobility systems one final time, moving through the loading bay so quickly that he appeared as little more than a blur. "Reconnaissance phase will be complete within 1 hour of landing," he reported. "All threats will be cataloged and prioritized for elimination." Hyunwoo quietly boarded the dropship and secured his simple equipment in a small storage compartment. He found a seat near the observation windows and settled in for the journey to Kit. The dropship touched down on Kythera 7 with a deep rumble that shook the ground beneath it. Through the reinforced windows, the rescue team could see a landscape that looked like something from a nightmare. Twisted trees with metallic bark stretched toward a crimson sky, their branches moving despite the absence of wind. The air itself seemed to shimmer with tiny particles that caught the light like floating diamonds. "Atmospheric readings confirmed toxic," Dr. Veltara announced, checking her instruments. 17 different corrosive compounds detected. Radiation levels are within acceptable limits for our equipment. Temperature is stable at 38 degrees Celsius. Grixmore stood near the exit ramp, his powered armor humming with energy. "Warriors, prepare for deployment. Remember, we are here to rescue survivors and eliminate any threats we encounter. Show this death world the power of the Vorthak." The loading ramp descended with a mechanical whine. As soon as it touched the alien soil, the team could hear the planet welcoming them. Strange sounds echoed from the metallic forest, clicks, whistles, and low rumbles that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Zefkil was the first to step onto the surface. His sleek form moved with confidence as his multiple eyes scanned the surrounding area. "Initial reconnaissance beginning now," he reported through the communication system. "No immediate threats detected within 50-meter radius." The Quillian scout began moving away from the dropship at his usual high speed. His mobility systems allowed him to cover ground faster than most vehicles, and he quickly disappeared between the strange trees. His mission was to establish a safe perimeter and locate the research station. "Scout team is in position," came his voice over the radio after just 3 minutes. "Moving toward research station coordinates, all systems nominal." Dr. Veltara emerged from the dropship next, her advanced environmental suit making soft beeping sounds as it analyzed the alien environment. "Fascinating," she said, studying her readings. "The plant life shows signs of metallic integration. These trees appear to have evolved copper and iron compounds into their cellular structure." She approached one of the nearby trees and extended a sampling device toward its bark. The moment the instrument made contact, the tree's surface rippled like liquid metal. Dr. Veltara stepped back in surprise as the bark reformed itself, leaving no trace of where her device had touched. "Interesting defensive mechanism," she noted, making recordings. "The vegetation shows adaptive properties beyond anything in our databases." Grixmore and his 2 warriors formed a protective formation around the scientist. Their weapons were powered and ready, scanning for any signs of danger. The massive Vorthak warriors moved with practiced efficiency, their natural armor supplemented by the best technology the Federation could provide. "Area secure," Kexvor reported. "No hostile movement detected." Through the radio, Zefkil's voice crackled with excitement. "I can see the research station. It appears intact from this distance. Moving closer for detailed observation." As the scout approached the silent research facility, something in the seemingly peaceful landscape began to change. The soft clicking sounds from the metallic forest grew louder and more rhythmic. The floating particles in the air started to move in organized patterns instead of drifting randomly. "Zefkil, report your status," Grixmore commanded. "All systems functional. I am approximately 100 meters from the station entrance. The building shows signs of damage, but nothing that would explain the loss of communication." The Quillian scout moved across what appeared to be harmless moss growing between the metallic trees. His speed and agility had always been his greatest assets, allowing him to outrun any predator or obstacle. But as his feet touched the moss, something unexpected happened. "Warning," came his voice, now tinged with alarm. "The ground covering is releasing some kind of spores. My environmental suit is filtering them, but the concentration is increasing rapidly." Dr. Veltara checked her remote readings from his suit. "The spores appear to be crystalline in nature. They should not be able to penetrate your filtration systems." But even as she spoke, Zefkil's movement began to slow. The spores were not trying to get through his filters. They were crystallizing the filters themselves. His advanced environmental systems, designed to handle any known atmospheric threat, began to fail as the alien particles turned his own protective equipment into a trap. "Systems failure," Zefkil gasped, his multiple limbs beginning to stiffen. "The spores are crystallizing my suit. I cannot move. I cannot—" His voice cut off abruptly. The life signs monitor in Dr. Veltara's equipment showed his vital signs spiking and then going flat. "Zefkil is down," she announced, her voice steady despite the shock. "The spores appear to have a crystallization effect on both organic and technological materials." Grixmore's response was immediate and violent. "Warriors, advance formation. We will recover our fallen comrade and eliminate whatever killed him." The 3 Vorthak warriors moved toward Zefkil's last known position, their weapons charged and ready. Their powered armor was designed to withstand the most extreme environments, and their natural resilience had allowed their species to conquer dozens of dangerous worlds. As they approached the area where the scout had fallen, Dr. Veltara followed. At a safe distance, her instruments recording everything. Her advanced sensors detected no obvious threats, but she had learned caution from the scout's unexpected death. The Vorthak warriors found Zefkil's body partially merged with the moss he had been running across. The crystallization process had turned both the alien scout and his equipment into a statue-like formation that seemed to pulse with inner light. What kind of weapon could do this? Kexvor asked, studying the scene. No weapon, Dr. Veltara replied after checking her readings. This appears to be a natural defensive mechanism. The moss releases spores when pressure is applied at high speed. The faster the movement, the more spores are released. Thane Kul, the largest of the warriors, approached the crystallized remains. Then we move slowly and carefully. Vorthak armor can withstand anything this planet produces. But as he spoke, the ground beneath his feet began to shift. What had appeared to be solid earth was actually a complex network of plant roots that had grown together to create a false surface. The roots sensed the weight of his massive armor and began to move. Gravity field detected, Dr. Veltara warned, but it was too late. The roots beneath Thane Kul suddenly parted, revealing a deep cavity filled with acid that glowed with bioluminescent light. The massive warrior, weighed down by his heavy armor, fell into the trap before his companions could react. His screams echoed through the metallic forest for only a few seconds before the acid began dissolving both his armor and his body. The most advanced protective equipment in the galaxy proved useless against a biological weapon that had evolved for millions of years to hunt the deadliest prey. Thane Kul is gone, Grixmore reported, his voice showing the first signs of uncertainty. These plants are more dangerous than our intelligence indicated. Dr. Veltara was frantically adjusting her sensors, trying to understand how the planet's defenses worked. The vegetation appears to be interconnected through underground root networks. They are sharing information about our presence and coordinating their responses. As if responding to her words, the clicking sounds from the forest grew louder and more urgent. The floating particles in the air began moving faster, forming complex patterns that seemed almost like communication signals. Kexvor backed toward his commander, his weapons trained on the surrounding vegetation. "Sir, I recommend immediate retreat to the dropship. We are facing an opponent we do not understand." But retreat was no longer an option. The trees around them began to move, their metallic branches reaching toward the two remaining warriors. Dr. Veltara's instruments detected massive energy buildups throughout the forest as the planet's collective intelligence focused its attention on the intruders. "Electromagnetic pulse detected," she warned. "Something is targeting our equipment." The pulse hit them like an invisible wave, overloading their energy shields and causing their advanced weapons to spark and fail. Dr. Veltara's environmental suit began shutting down system by system as the electromagnetic attack overwhelmed its defensive capabilities. From seemingly solid ground around them, creatures began to emerge. They looked like rocks at first, but as they moved, it became clear they were predators that had evolved perfect camouflage. Their bodies could shift between solid and liquid states, allowing them to flow around armor and attack from unexpected angles. Kexvor opened fire with his backup weapons, but the energy blasts passed harmlessly through the shifting creatures. "Conventional weapons ineffective," he reported. "They are phasing through our attacks." Dr. Veltara tried to retreat toward the dropship, but her suit's mobility systems had been damaged by the electromagnetic pulse. She moved slowly and awkwardly, no longer protected by her advanced technology. One of the phase-shifting predators flowed around her legs like liquid stone, then solidified, trapping her in place. She watched in horror as her environmental suit began dissolving from contact with the creature's acidic surface. Hyunwoo sat in the silence of the dropship for several minutes after the last transmission ended. The communication panel showed only static where his teammates' life signs had been displayed. The most elite rescue team the Federation could assemble had been destroyed by Cathera 7's defenses in less than half an hour. According to his orders, he should remain with the dropship and wait for backup. Captain Torvash had been very clear that the human was not to leave the safety of the ship under any circumstances. But somewhere out there, people might still be alive at the research station, and now he was the only one who could help them. Hyun-woo checked his simple equipment one more time. His basic atmospheric suit, field medical kit, sample containers, and portable analysis tools looked incredibly primitive compared to the advanced gear his fallen teammates had carried. By every measure of technology and capability, he was the least qualified member of the team to attempt a rescue mission, but he had heard something in the final transmissions that the others had missed. The planet's defenses had not been random or mindlessly aggressive. They had been targeted and intelligent, responding to specific threats in specific ways. The crystallizing moss had triggered only when Zeph-Kill moved at high speed. The acid trap had opened only under the massive weight of Thane Cool's heavy armor. The electromagnetic pulse had targeted their advanced energy systems. Hyun-woo activated the dropship's external cameras and studied the landscape around the landing site. The metallic trees stood quietly, their branches no longer moving. The clicking sounds from the forest had returned to their original soft rhythm. The floating particles in the air drifted peacefully, instead of forming the aggressive patterns they had shown during the attack. It was as if the planet had returned to a resting state after dealing with what it perceived as threats. Hyun-woo made his decision. He sealed his atmospheric suit, checked his emergency oxygen supply, and opened the dropship's exit ramp. As he stepped onto the alien soil, he could feel the slight vibration through his boots as the planet's underground root network detected his presence. But unlike his teammates, Hyun-woo did not stride confidently into the alien landscape. He moved slowly and carefully, placing each foot gently on the ground. His movements were deliberate and non-threatening, more like someone exploring a garden than an invader preparing for conquest. The response was immediate and noticeable. The metallic trees near him remained still. The floating particles in the air continued their peaceful drift. The soft clicking from the forest maintained its quiet rhythm. Whatever intelligence controlled this world's defenses seemed to be evaluating him differently than it had the others. As Hyun-woo walked deeper into the metallic forest, he began to notice details that his teammates' advanced sensors had missed. The trees were not just randomly placed, they formed patterns that suggested careful cultivation. The moss on the ground grew in specific areas that seemed designed to channel movement along particular paths. When he encountered the area where Zeph-Kill had died, Hyun-woo stopped and examined the crystallized remains. The scout's body had become part of the landscape, incorporated into what appeared to be a memorial formation. The moss around the crystal structure glowed softly, as if marking the location of something significant. Hyun-woo knelt beside the formation and carefully collected a small sample of the moss in one of his containers. As his hand approached the plant, he moved slowly and gently, telegraphing his intentions. The moss did not release spores. Instead, it seemed to withdraw slightly, allowing him to take what he needed without triggering its defensive mechanisms. He continued toward the research station, following the path that seemed to be marked by the natural flow of the landscape. When he reached the area where the acid trap had claimed Thane Cool, he found something unexpected. The cavity had been sealed over with new growth, but near its edge lay several objects, pieces of equipment that had belonged to the research team. The items had been carefully placed, not scattered, as if dropped during an attack. They included a communication device, a medical scanner, and several data storage units. Someone or something had collected these items and left them where they could be found. Hyun-woo examined the communication device and found that it still held power. When he activated it, he heard a recording that made his heart race with hope. "This is Dr. Keth Nara of the Kithara 7 research team," came a weak but clear voice. "If anyone receives this message, please know that some of us are still alive. The planet is not attacking us randomly. It is testing us. Those who learn to work with it instead of against it are allowed to survive. We are hiding in the lower levels of the research station. The access codes are—" The message continued, with detailed instructions for reaching the survivors. More importantly, it explained that the planet's apparent hostility was actually a complex evaluation system. Species that approached with aggression and dominance were eliminated. Those who showed respect and cooperation were protected. As Hyun-woo listened to the recording, he became aware that he was being watched. Slowly turning, he saw several of the phase-shifting creatures that had killed Grixmore. They stood motionless nearby, their forms solid but ready to change in an instant. Instead of reaching for a weapon or running, Hyun-woo did something that would have seemed insane to his fallen teammates. He sat down cross-legged on the ground and waited. The creatures approached cautiously, their forms shifting between rock-like solidity and flowing liquid. As they came closer, Hyun-woo could see that they were not mindless predators, but intelligent beings with complex social behaviors. They moved in coordinated patterns that suggested communication and decision-making. One of the creatures extended a pseudopod toward Hyun-woo's atmospheric suit. Instead of panicking, he remained still and allowed the contact. The creature's touch was gentle, almost curious. It seemed to be testing the composition of his equipment, learning about this strange new visitor. After several minutes of examination, the creatures began to move away. But instead of leaving randomly, they positioned themselves along the path, toward the research station. Their intent was clear. They were offering to guide him. Hyun-woo stood slowly and began following the creatures toward the research station. As they walked, he noticed more signs of the planet's intelligence. The path they followed avoided the dangerous areas where his teammates had died. When they encountered obstacles, the creatures showed him safe ways around them. At one point, they reached a section where the ground was covered with the same crystallizing moss that had killed Zeph-Kill. The creatures stopped and waited. Hyun-woo studied the area and realized that the moss formed a pattern with safe stepping stones between the dangerous sections. By moving slowly and placing his feet only on the designated areas, he could cross safely. The creatures watched approvingly as he navigated the obstacle course they had revealed to him. Their body language, alien as it was, clearly expressed satisfaction with his performance. As they approached the research station, Hyun-woo could see the damage that had convinced his teammates the facility was under attack. Walls were partially dissolved, equipment was scattered, and energy barriers had been breached. But now he understood what had really happened. The planet had not attacked the research station. It had been testing the people inside, just as it was testing him. Those who failed the tests had been eliminated. Those who passed had been allowed to survive, but only in areas where they could prove they understood the rules. The creatures led him to a hidden entrance that had been concealed by rapidly growing vegetation. As Hyun-woo approached the door, it opened automatically. From inside came the voice he had heard on the recording. "Welcome," said Dr. Kethnara, a Zilani scientist whose environmental suit was damaged but functional. "We have been waiting for someone who could understand what this place really is." Behind her stood several other survivors, 2 humans, a Quillian, and another Zilani. They all shared the same look of people who had learned hard lessons about survival. "The planet is not our enemy," Dr. Kethnara explained as she led Hyun-woo into the research station's lower levels. "It is a teacher. It evaluates every species that arrives here, testing whether they can adapt and integrate rather than dominate and destroy." She showed him to a section of the station that had been modified with materials that appeared to be gifts from the planet itself. The walls were reinforced with the same metallic compounds found in the trees. The air filtration systems had been enhanced with biological components that worked better than anything in Federation databases. "Those who approach with weapons and shields are seen as threats," one of the human survivors explained. Her name was Da-Yun Lee, and she had been the station's xenobotanist. Those who come with curiosity and respect are seen as potential partners. The other human survivor, Wu Jin Choi, had been working on communication protocols with the planet's intelligence. "We have learned that Kythera 7 is not just a world," he said. "It is a single massive organism with distributed intelligence. Every plant, every creature, every particle in the air is part of a collective consciousness that has been evaluating species for millions of years." Inside the research station's modified corridors, Hyunwoo found himself in a world that challenged everything he thought he knew about science and survival. The walls pulsed with a soft organic light that came from living circuits grown from Kythera 7's native organisms. The air smelled fresh and clean, processed by biological filters that worked better than any technology the Federation had developed. Da-Un Lee led him through the transformed facility, explaining how they had learned to work with the planet rather than against it. "When we first arrived here 6 months ago, we made the same mistakes your rescue team made," she said. "We came with advanced equipment and defensive barriers, ready to study this world from a safe distance." She paused at a section where the original metal walls had been partially dissolved and then regrown with a hybrid material that looked both technological and biological. "The planet tested us immediately. Our energy shields triggered electromagnetic responses. Our weapons systems were seen as threats. Our atmospheric processors were interpreted as attempts to change the environment." Wu Jin Choi joined them, carrying a device that looked unlike anything in Federation databases. It was part machine and part living organism, with crystalline components that grew and changed as they watched. "This is how we learned to communicate with the planetary intelligence," he explained. "Traditional technology tries to impose our will on the environment. This bio-interface allows us to join the conversation that is already happening." He activated the device, and immediately the walls around them began to display patterns of light that shifted and flowed like written language. "Every surface on this planet is capable of communication," Wu Jin said. "The trees, the ground, even the air particles can carry information. We just had to learn how to listen." Dr. Keth Nara appeared from a side corridor, carrying what appeared to be samples of the planet's organisms. Her environmental suit had been modified with biological components that seemed to breathe and pulse with their own life. "The most important discovery we made is that Kythera 7 is not just inhabited by intelligent life, it is intelligent life. The entire planet is a single consciousness with distributed processing across millions of interconnected organisms," Yade led them to what had once been the station's main laboratory. Now it looked more like a living cave, with surfaces that curved organically and equipment that seemed to have grown rather than been manufactured. "This consciousness has been evaluating species for over 4 million years, she continued. "It allows those who can adapt and integrate to join its ecosystem. It eliminates those who see intelligence only as something to be conquered or controlled." Hyunwoo examined the biotechnological equipment with fascination. Everything in the eye, lab-demonstrated principles that human science was only beginning to understand. "How many species have passed the test?" he asked. "More than you might expect," Da-Un replied. "The planet preserves knowledge from every species that has successfully integrated. We have access to scientific discoveries from civilizations that existed millions of years before the Federation was formed." She showed him a living database that resembled a crystalline tree growing from the floor. When she touched its surface, images appeared in the air around them. Star maps showing the locations of other worlds, mathematical formulas that described physics beyond current understanding, and artistic creations from species that had evolved in ways the galaxy had never seen. "The Zalani pride themselves on their advanced intellect," Dr. Keth Nara said with obvious irony. "But the collective intelligence here makes our most brilliant scientists look like children playing with simple toys. The difference is that this intelligence is not based on individual superiority, it is based on cooperation and mutual growth." Wu Jin activated another bio-interface, and the room filled with a soft humming sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "This is how the planet communicates with us," he explained. "It does not use words the way we understand them. It shares experiences, emotions, and concepts directly through biological connections." As Hyun-woo listened to the humming, he began to understand that it was not random sound, but complex information transfer. The patterns contained scientific data, historical records, and something that felt like emotional communication from a vast intelligence that had been alone for millions of years. "The planet has been waiting," Da-un said quietly. "All these tests, all this evaluation of different species has been leading to something. It has been looking for partners who can help it reach beyond this single world." She showed him images that appeared in the living database, star charts that showed the locations of other planets where similar intelligences might exist. "Kithara 7 is not unique," she explained. "There are other world minds scattered throughout the galaxy. They have been trying to communicate with each other across the vast distances of space." Dr. Keth Nara added more detail to this revelation. "The planetary intelligence believes that species capable of cooperation rather than domination are the key to creating a network of world minds that can share knowledge and experience across the galaxy. But first, it needs to find species that can serve as bridges between different types of consciousness." "Humans," Hyun-woo said, understanding beginning to dawn. "Humans and a few other species that have shown the capacity for empathy and adaptation," Wu Jin confirmed. "Your species does not have the physical strength of the Vorthak or the intellectual processing power of the Zalani. But you have something more valuable: the ability to understand and cooperate with forms of intelligence that are completely different from your own." The surviving Quillian team member, who had been quietly working with biological equipment in a corner of the lab, approached their group. Her name was Sivnel, and her normally rapid speech had slowed to a more thoughtful pace since her integration with the planet's systems. "My people value speed and efficiency above all else," she said. "But this world taught me that some problems cannot be solved by moving faster. Some types of growth require patience and time to develop properly." She showed them a biotechnological device she had been developing with the planet's guidance. It was designed to facilitate communication between species with completely different sensory systems and cognitive processes. "The planetary intelligence has been teaching us to create tools that can bridge the gap between different types of minds," she explained. As Hyun-woo absorbed all this information, he realized that the rescue mission had uncovered something far more significant than anyone had imagined. The research team had not just survived on a death world. They had made contact with a form of intelligence that could change the entire galaxy's understanding of consciousness and cooperation. "What about the others who died?" he asked. "Grixmore, Dr. Veltara, the rest of the rescue team?" Da-yun's expression became sad but understanding. "The planet does not take pleasure in elimination," she said. "But it cannot allow consciousness that is based on dominance and control to access its knowledge. Such minds would use that knowledge to conquer and destroy rather than cooperate and create." "Their deaths were not meaningless," Dr. Keth Nara added. "The planet learned from each interaction. It understands now that the Federation includes species with different approaches to intelligence and survival. It is preparing to make contact with those who might be ready for cooperation." Wu Jin activated a communication device that connected to the dropship where Hyun-woo had begun his journey. "The planetary intelligence wants to send a message to your ship," he said. "It wants to invite representatives from species that have shown capacity for adaptation and cooperation to return here for a different kind of first contact. Not a research mission or a conquest," Da-yun clarified, "but a teaching exchange where both sides can learn from each other." Through the bio-interface, images began to appear showing how this partnership might work. Humans and other adaptable species would serve as ambassadors, helping the planetary intelligence communicate with the broader galaxy while learning technologies and perspectives that could benefit all species willing to cooperate rather than dominate. The Federation thinks in terms of individual worlds and separate species, Sivnel observed. But consciousness at this level thinks in terms of connected networks and shared growth. It offers a completely different way of understanding what civilization could become. Hyunwoo realized that his quiet walk through the Deathworld had led to one of the most important discoveries in galactic history. Kithara 7 was not just another dangerous planet to be avoided or conquered. It was a teacher, a partner, and possibly the key to a form of civilization based on cooperation rather than competition. As the bio-interfaces around them continued to pulse with shared information, Hyunwoo understood that he would need to return to the Nexus Prime with news that would challenge everything the Federation believed about intelligence, survival, and the future of galactic civilization. The quiet human had not just survived the Deathworld, he had become the first ambassador to a form of consciousness that the galaxy was not yet ready to understand, but desperately needed to learn from. Outside the research station, the phase-shifting creatures that had guided him continued their patient watch. No longer guards, but partners in an exchange of knowledge that could reshape the future of all intelligent life in the galaxy. The journey back to the Nexus Prime was unlike any return journey Hyunwoo had ever experienced. The dropship's cargo hold contained not just the survivors from the research station, but also samples of biotechnology that represented millions of years of accumulated knowledge from dozens of species that had successfully integrated with Kithara 7's planetary intelligence. Dae-Yun Lee sat quietly reviewing the data they had collected, her expression a mixture of excitement and concern. "Captain Torvash is not going to believe what we tell him," she said. "The idea that an entire planet can be a single conscious entity challenges everything the Federation thinks it knows about intelligence and civilization." Dr. Keth Nara was carefully monitoring the bio-interfaces they had brought with them, ensuring that the living technology remained stable during transport. "The planetary intelligence has given us a great responsibility," she replied. "We are carrying the first formal communication between a world mind and the Galactic Federation. How we present this information will determine whether this becomes an opportunity for growth or another conflict based on misunderstanding." Woo Jin Choi had spent the entire journey working with the communication systems, preparing to transmit their findings to the Nexus Prime. "I have been thinking about how to explain what we learned," he said. "The crew will expect a report about a rescue mission to a dangerous world. Instead, we are returning with evidence of a form of consciousness that operates on a scale they cannot imagine." Through the dropship's windows, they could see the massive research vessel growing larger as they approached. Hyunwoo knew that within that ship were aliens who had laughed at the idea of a human surviving on a death world. Now he was returning not just alive, but carrying knowledge that could change the galaxy's understanding of what survival really meant. The docking bay was filled with crew members as the dropship touched down. Captain Torvash stood at the center of the gathering, his 6 arms crossed in a posture that suggested he was prepared for bad news. Grix Moore's replacement, a younger Vorthak named Dextar, flanked the captain with several other security personnel. The massive hegemonian's expression showed surprise as Hyunwoo emerged from the dropship followed by multiple survivors. "Human. Kim," Captain Torvash said, his deep voice echoing through the bay. "We detected the loss of all team member life signs. How did you manage to locate and rescue the survivors?" "Captain," Hyunwoo replied calmly, "the situation is more complex than our initial report suggested. The research team was not attacked by hostile forces. They were being evaluated by a planetary intelligence that we had not recognized." A murmur ran through the assembled crew members. The idea that a planet could be intelligent was outside the experience of most Federation species. Dr. Veltara's replacement, a Zalani scientist named Zek Mira, stepped forward with obvious skepticism. "Human Kim," she said, her voice carrying. the condescending tone that Hyunwoo had grown accustomed to. "Are you suggesting that an entire planet achieved consciousness? Such a claim would require extraordinary evidence." Daeun Lee emerged from the dropship carrying one of the bio-interfaces they had brought from Kithara 7. As soon as the device was exposed to the ship's atmosphere, it began to pulse with soft light and emit the complex humming sounds that served as the planetary intelligence's communication method. "This is that evidence," she said simply. The device continued to emit its patterns of sound and light, and gradually the assembled crew members realized they were witnessing a form of communication unlike anything in their experience. The patterns were too complex and organized to be random, but they followed principles that no Federation science could explain. Dr. Zekmira approached the bio-interface with her scanning equipment, but as her instruments came near the device, something unexpected happened. The bio-interface began to respond to her presence, its patterns shifting to match the electromagnetic frequencies generated by her Zalani brain. "Impossible," she whispered, watching her instruments register readings that defied explanation. "The device is adapting its communication patterns to match my neural pathways. It is learning how to speak to me specifically." Captain Torvash studied the bio-interface with the tactical mind that had made him one of the Federation's most respected commanders. "If what you are claiming is true, then this represents the most significant discovery in galactic history. But how do we know this intelligence is not hostile? Your rescue team was eliminated by the planet's defenses." Hyunwoo stepped forward, his quiet voice carrying clearly through the docking bay. "Captain, the team was eliminated because they approached the planet as conquerors rather than guests. The planetary intelligence has been testing species for millions of years, seeking those capable of cooperation rather than domination." He gestured to the survivors who had emerged from the dropship. Those who learned to work with the planet instead of against it were not only allowed to survive, but were given access to knowledge accumulated from dozens of species over millions of years. Wu Jin activated another bio-interface, and holographic images appeared in the air above the device. The images showed star charts marking the locations of other worlds where similar planetary intelligences existed, scientific formulas that described principles beyond current Federation understanding, and artistic creations from civilizations that had evolved in ways the galaxy had never seen. "The planetary intelligence is not alone," Wu Jin explained. "There is a network of world minds scattered throughout the galaxy, and they have been trying to communicate with each other across vast distances. They believe that species capable of cooperation can serve as bridges between different types of consciousness." Sivnel, the surviving Quillian from the research team, stepped forward to address her people's natural skepticism. "My species values speed and efficiency above all else," she said, her normally rapid speech measured and thoughtful. "But this world taught me that some forms of growth require patience and understanding that cannot be rushed." The assembled crew members listened with growing amazement as the survivors shared their experiences. Each story challenged fundamental assumptions about intelligence, survival, and the nature of consciousness itself. Dex Tar, the young Vorthak security chief, approached Hyunwoo with obvious confusion. "Human Kim," he said, "you had no advanced weapons, no powered armor, no energy shields. How did you survive where our greatest warriors could not?" "I listened before I acted," Hyunwoo replied simply. "I observed before I judged. I approached with respect instead of assumptions about superiority." Dr. Keth Nara activated a larger bio-interface that projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Points of light appeared scattered across the star field, each representing a world where planetary intelligence existed. "The Federation has been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years," she said, "but we have been looking for intelligence that resembles our own. We have missed entirely different forms of consciousness that operate on scales we never imagined." Captain Torvash studied the galactic map with the strategic mind that had guided him through decades of exploration and diplomacy. "If these world minds exist throughout the galaxy, then our entire approach to exploration and colonization may need to be reconsidered. More than reconsidered, Dawoon said. The planetary intelligence has offered to share knowledge that could solve problems the Federation has struggled with for centuries. Advanced biotechnology that can terraform hostile worlds without destroying existing ecosystems. Communication systems that can bridge the gap between species with completely different sensory experiences. Energy sources that work in harmony with natural systems rather than depleting them. She paused, allowing the implications to sink in. But this knowledge comes with a requirement. It can only be shared with species that demonstrate the capacity for cooperation and mutual growth, rather than conquest and control. The docking bay fell silent as the crew members absorbed the magnitude of what they were hearing. Everything they thought they knew about intelligence, survival, and galactic civilization was being challenged by the quiet human who had walked through a death world and returned with revelations that could reshape the future. Dr. Zek Mira, who had begun the conversation with skepticism, now stared at her instruments in wonder. "The bio-interface has been teaching my scanning equipment to communicate more efficiently," she said with amazement. "In just a few minutes, it has improved my technology in ways that should have taken years of research to achieve." Young Dextar looked at Hyunwoo with new respect. "Human Kim. My predecessor Grixmore died believing that strength and advanced weapons were the keys to survival. But you succeeded where he failed, using only basic equipment and—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Wisdom that my people do not teach. Your people do not need to change what makes them strong," Hyunwoo replied. "They need to learn that strength comes in many different forms. The planetary intelligence values the Vorthak warrior spirit, but it also values the Zilani pursuit of knowledge, the Quillian drive for efficiency, and the human capacity for empathy and adaptation." Captain Torvash made his decision with the authority that had earned him command of one of the Federation's most important vessels. "Human Kim, I am pro.